Women on Top is proudly sponsored by Sanlam.
Where women are on top, where women lead, it's in soft industries, it's in cosmetics, it's in fashion, it's in HR. You're going to see a woman running an oil company, and that's actually what's needed. How do you respond to that?
Gosh. I think when you look at women in industry, I think there are some powerful women in industry. I think I've met some of them here. You know, having the privilege of living in South Africa, there are some very powerful women who do run oil companies or mining companies, particularly mining companies, and I can think of one person in particular that I'm thinking of. But I think what one needs to do is one needs to give women the opportunity to be able to come in to all types of businesses, whether that's through a graduate program whereby you go to universities and you bring those fabulous young kids who've just graduated into an organization, it doesn't matter what sort of organization it is, to allow them to experience a range of opportunities within that organization, whether it be what you call the soft touch departments such as HR, or whether you put them into, and it's not my skill set at all, but into mining or finance or all of those sort of areas, to allow them to learn, to develop, and to gauge whether they want to sit in that particular department or industry. And I think that's one very important thing that all corporations should be considering in order to be able to move young women up through an organisation, is to give them that opportunity and that experience.
Well, Lorato, I think from our side, yes, women tend to be in the soft industries, but it is actually not out of choice. But let me first say that there are women who lead in the fashion industry. If you think your Jimmy Choo head, quite a few women who are running huge businesses in fashion. So when we're talking about fashion, we're not really talking about just that one tiny person that does, clothing for a few ladies. They run big corporations as well. And that requires finance, it requires marketing, it requires strategy. It just requires all those pillars that you find in the corporate world. But having said that, a lot of women enter the job market, enter the corporate world with the intention of becoming the next CEO or chief financial officer. But then they come across these roadblocks, where they're not being promoted, they're being ignored for big projects because there is this perception that, oh, she might fall pregnant and that client will panic if we put this person into that position. So what happens is that women then opt out.
Shirley, I'd like you to comment on what's just been said here, because I think as an HR practitioner, you can tell us whether the laws support or discriminate against women and the multifaceted responsibilities that they have. Is that you have ambition professionally, but you've got social responsibilities and you've definitely got family obligations. Why does the law treat us differently to men?
I think our legal regime in South Africa, in terms of what is possible in making sure that women actually advance and progress, I think those are fairly robust. I think that many organizations will pick and choose which parts of those they actually prefer to ignore and which ones they prefer to implement. I think what's important for me is that organizations don't transform, people do. And some great person said that, so those are not my words. I have to give credit where credit is due. However, we need to look at our own biases, at our own prejudices. And I think often as women, we are our own biggest barrier, because we build up those barriers in our own heads, and then we play this, a second fiddled game with ourselves in terms of we're not worthy, we are not loved or cared for, and therefore we are not. And then we begin to, start a whole cycle of just losing confidence and saying, well, then I actually can't do this. We can. We have seen many women who actually can, through the most difficult things that life throws at you, that things that happen in your career, you actually can lift yourself out of that and manage your way through quite a difficult journey, surrounding yourself with the right people, with the right mentors. The legislation is been there for many years to enable us However, often it is our own selves, and it's those little whispers we hear about you can't, you can fail, it's going to be a mess, and we play these things through to ourselves. I think the psychology of enabling oneself is very, very important, and empowering oneself in the first place. Now, if you look at recruitment practices, you look at training practices, you look at promotions, I mean, one of the things, and I constantly have to look at this to continue to tell my organization, are you sure that we are doing the right thing here? If you look at remuneration, men are still earning more than women for jobs of equal value. Where is the fairness and equity in all of that? Now, these are the undiscussables often, but it creates great pain and agony and anxiety for people when they feel that the organization is being unfair towards them. And it's not often discussed. And I think we must surface these things in order to be able to ensure that we pursue and we progress this debate meaningfully.
Well, you just blew the lid off of that. So I just want to know, as you said, in your industry, there tends to be a lot of women. Does that mean recruitment practices, labor practices are then different? When I come and work for you and I say to you, I'm 3 months pregnant, is that instantaneously a barrier to my growth?
No. And in fact, it's funny that you should mention that, because one of the newest people that we've just recruited is actually pregnant, and we knew that, and we still took her on because we think she's going to do an amazing job for the brand that she's working for. So we have 74% of our corporation is women, and if you take in the retail segment, 87% of the workforce are women. And this year, in the last 1 year, we promoted 26 people from within. And I think that's the sort of corporation that we are, where we build, we train, we mentor, we coach, and we ensure that, we look at the diversity of our workforce, and we ensure that, we're supporting women wherever we can.
Does that mean, Anitha, that women make better leaders? And let's be honest here.
I've got to say, and it's, obviously, I'm not being prejudiced towards men, but I just think there are, firstly, innately, as women, we're not informed by theories only. We just seem to be blessed with quite a bit of common sense as well, and compassion. And those are traits which we seem to be able to use more effectively in leadership as well. And, I've got to say to you, pretty much, again, on Sue's comment, is the International Marketing Council of South Africa. When we were appointed in December 2009 by the President, it was quite clear that we had a custodian that was going to support, our work. And, I'm pleased to announce that of the 6 EXCO members of the board, 4 are women, and chairing things like the audit committee, and not just, the periphery marketing committee. It's not that marketing is periphery, but it's, goes to show that it's out there. So I think that women, I believe strongly that women do make better leaders. I also come from a base industry of tourism. And that, again, pretty much, like Sue mentions, is an industry that understands that its success is dependent on getting the right people. And what does it do? It recruits women, because we seem to be better with customer service, we're better at project management and the detail as well. So women do have the ability to be able to produce what is required of them, give them a chance to do it.
All right, on that very poignant note, I'm going to open this discussion to the floor. So ladies, over to you.
My name is Dr. Tony Luck, and I celebrate all of you and what you've done. I don't know what you want me to say. My daughter pushed me up here, my Sanlam girl. But I do want to say one thing about, one of you mentioned about be yourself. But the challenge with women a lot is we don't even know who that self is. So it's very, very, very important each day to take at least 10 or 15 minutes to find out who you are. The second thing is manicures, pedicures, and massages need to be in your budget. For the way we work, they are not a luxury. They are a necessity. And don't say you can paint your own nails and that stuff. It doesn't work. It's so lovely for other people to take good care of you, because that also adds. So you need to put in your budget your own care and that's manicures, pedicures. Get somebody to wash your hair. Don't talk about you wash your hair under the shower. That's all silly, because then you don't get a chance to have other people take care of you, because we're always look at us, we're made to take care of people. You don't think so? So it's very important for us to get other people to take care of us.
And I think amen to everything you've just said.
So if I may just add to what Dr. Love has said, we come from the same background. I think in addition to what you said, we need to find time for quietness, quiet time. You can call it meditation, you can call it being in prayer, you can call it just having time for just stillness in your life is very important.
Absolutely. Other comments from the floor?
I consider myself one of the luckiest women in South Africa. I'm the marketing manager for AFI, and my boss is Dr. Precious Moloi-Motsepe. And she does a lot to empower women in our business, as you all do. I think more than 70% of our company is women, which is incredible. But I wanted to find out, and I'm sure other viewers would like to know, what are some of the initiatives that you do within your company that empower women, that women in your company know they can rely on to be advanced?
Okay. We've heard Standard Bank and I think Estee Lauder. Can we find out from the IMC?
Yeah, well, we've got such a wonderful organization. We have this beautiful country called South Africa. And as chairman of Brand South Africa, which is the custodians of the brand, we find that most of our top management, I think, save for one, every single executive management position in the company is occupied by women. As I said earlier on, we have a board, quite an extensive board. I sometimes think we're holding a mass meeting. But, we have provinces represented, we have public sector, private sector, etc. But even within that, just when you look at the circle of influence of these 5 women that serve on the ExCo of the Board of Brand South Africa, we've got to be doing something right to be able to encourage each other and support each other, that we all have as much passion and enthusiasm to do what we're doing. But reflecting on myself as a business person, because that's what I am an entrepreneur business person. Way back in the 90s, I started one of the first event management companies in South Africa. It wasn't the field I was supposed to go into, but I wanted to do strategy stuff in tourism, etc., which I eventually got to do. But to pay the rent, I was very creative and set up an event management company. And we, at one stage in the late 90s, had about 35 people at our offices in KwaZulu-Natal. And of the 35, 20 were women. When I had pressure on me to come up to this Golden Province and do what I had to do to serve the country, I set up each one of those managers in that company, took accounts with them, assisted them to set up their own events company and management companies. And I'm proud to say that a lot of them are holding their own. They're the leaders of the pack today when I look back on them, doing opening ceremonies for things like the World Summit on Sustainable Development, handling key events. And it gives one such a great feeling to say, there's a bit of my DNA running in there. And it's great. And the best compliment for a woman is for somebody to come up to you and say, I want to do something like you're doing, and not feel intimidated, and be able to support them through that.
All right, ladies, we're going to close this discussion to the floor, but thank you so much for standing up, sharing your stories with us, and also for the commendations for our panelists today. Just to remind our viewers, we've had the views and insights of Dr. Precious Moloi-Motsepe, Chairman of Africa Fashion International, Sue Fox, who's the Managing Director of Estee Lauder Companies, Professor Shirley Zinn, who's HR Director at Standard Bank South Africa and the Deputy Global Head for Human Resources at the Standard Bank Group, Anitha Soni, the Chairman of the International Marketing Council. Thank you for watching the special broadcast, Women on Top.